for the Southeast, and we're here today and have been, well, Monday, Tuesday, and for the rest of the week as well, doing sort of webinars, Southeast webinars all around celebrating what is the first Nursing and Midwifery Green Week. And for the Southeast, we're celebrating this week by showcasing, having these webinars each day from 1 till 2, and they're all themed webinars around the sustainability agenda. So on day 1, on Monday, we had a feature around population health, and I chaired that. It was a really good session. Yesterday was around the nursing care pathways, and my regional chief midwife, Kay Wilson, chaired that, and we're here today to talk around children and young people and the green agenda around this really important topic. And then tomorrow we've got a session on innovation in healthcare, and then Friday, our final day, is a session on clinical leadership, and which is then followed by an award ceremony that we've got. So people have put in citations for willing for those that they feel are very deserving of awards, and we've had some brilliant citations. So I'm really looking forward to Friday, but in particular looking forward to today. So and as you'll know, the NHS has got a big agenda around the sustainability and the green agenda. I'm rightly so, because we have quite a bit of a journey to climb around this, in that we do. Obviously, our carbon footprint has been huge, although we are making roads into that, but there's a lot that we can do to improve that around our carbon footprint. So the NHS contributes around 5% of the UK's carbon emissions, so that's a big deal. But to be fair, there's been a lot of work that's been undertaken around that. We've actually got green plans now. So from 2022, all trusts and ICSs needs to create and publish their own green plans. We're looking with regards to our fleet, our vehicle fleet within the NHS, that all going obviously electric as well. But there's lots that's been done, which we did hear about on Monday. We would have heard yesterday around where we can reduce our footprint, and where nurses and midwives can make an actual pivotal role around that. So IPC was quite a feature on Monday, and my golly, certainly around glove usage and apron usage, and also with regards to theatres as well, and what's used within just one case, one patient case. It's quite significant, actually, the disposables that are used in that, and quite a lot of plastic is involved. So lots of good work. Although those are issues to look at, there's lots of good work that's underway to really bring that down and improve that situation. But today we are talking about all things children and young people. And I think it's fair to say, climate change is having a profound impact on our younger generation and our younger people, and they've got really strong views around this as well. We certainly know at NHS England, in the national team, we have our CYP advisors who talk really strongly around this agenda and where we can make a difference, and are advising around that, which is really brilliant to see. And so we do need to listen to them because they've got some really good ideas as well, and obviously are undertaking some really good work also, which we'll bring out today. So we've got 3 speakers that are lined up. So a warm welcome to our speakers, and thank you so much for being here today. We're looking forward to hearing your presentations. First up, we've got Sadie Sullivan, who's a practice development nurse for Children's Services at University Hospital Sussex, and she's going to give us a radical new education programme. So talk to us around this new education programme that's been set up, that really is connecting young people and patients to nature. Then we've got Lou Batchelor, who is a sustainability presenter, video producer, and also does public speaking as well, and also a coach. And Lou, you're going to talk to us around engaging young people in conversations around the environment. So looking forward to hearing around that. And then finally, we've got Lucy O'Reilly, who's a youth voice consultant, and at least you've been supporting Bernardo's on the rollout of the NHS Young People's Health Challenge, and you're going to talk to us around that agenda. So great lineup, and as I said, this is halfway through our webinar week, but quite a pivotal point, I think, and an important one to that. So, without further ado, I will now hand over to my first presenter, Sadie. I think we've got it's 15 guys. Correct. It's 15 minutes, isn't it, for each presentation? And at the end, we've got 10 minutes for any questions or any reflection anybody has. And then we've got a few asks of you at the end as well. So, okay, brilliant. So over to Sadie, over to you. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me here today. I think I was able to join on Monday and see some of the brilliant speakers, and I've had a good look through the programme, and I think I'm going to be talking about something slightly different to the different ways you guys have had all your other presentations. So bear with me, but hopefully we'll get a lot out from this today. So I'm Sadie, I'm the Practice Development Nurse for Paediatrics and Neonates at Worthing and St Richards. I work in peds. I have masters in peds. I'm very focused in peds. However, I am actually an adult nurse by trade. So I like to say that I speak both languages. And I've worked in adult settings and with adult teams, interprofessional teams and children's teams, and how that all works together. So hopefully a lot of this will be applicable to people coming from all sorts of different areas. So next slide, please, Kate. So when I first came into education of paediatrics, I very much thought it was going to be about acute medical care and kind of resus training, that sort of thing. And actually, increasingly, since I came into this role, it's actually about child and young person mental health in the acute settings that I talk about a large amount of my work, as I'm sure many of you will also see. So a large amount of our admissions these days are actually related to CYP mental health, and we're looking after them in the acute settings, either because we're their local provider or because there isn't capacity for them to go to specialist settings. This has multiple complications. One, that we're not necessarily set up to look after those patients in the way that we might like to. We're not prepared for haven't been prepared, shall we say, for escalation of care, or kind of how we best provide ongoing care for these children and young people. Our staff are a big group for me, and I'll come back to them in a minute. But it's mostly to do with the acuity and safety that worries the staff. Next slide, please. Regarding our staff, very few of them have had previous mental health education, and the pre-registration programmes can quite often have very limited access to mental health education or placements. So a lot of our nurses who came into children's nursing didn't necessarily see this coming and don't necessarily have the education in place. And 3 years ago, we didn't really have education in place for this either. It wasn't necessarily part of our curriculums in the way that it should be and is now. There was a real consistent lack of a method regarding mental health education. With our critical care pathways, we know exactly what education we want our nurses to do, and we work through those pathways before they look after those higher risk patients. We really didn't have that for mental health. And as you see in the NHS England paper, we really should be valuing mental health in the same way we value physical health, and the education should reflect that. Therefore, last year we put in an interim programme, and have been working with Ruth Jacob from Certified Minds, who I believe has worked with some other trusts across the South East, to deliver an interim programme. So we delivered a study day based on CAMS, autism within the acute setting study day. We did quite a lot around meal supports and feds patients, and we also delivered what we called a keeping safe day, which is very much about keeping safe physically, psychologically and emotionally. We also had additional e-learning which was available to staff. Next slide, please. However, based on an awful lot of feedback, incidences, etc., we really felt that we needed to put in certified package of what we were going to do regarding education in this area. So we had those standalone study days, and we will continue to run those into 2024. We also have increased our provision of professional nurse advocates, including myself, increased the amount of supervision we offer staff after kind of incidences, but also just after admissions, and talking through how they felt about the admission and what we did really well, what we needed to develop, and actually making supervision part of their practice. We've also really tried to encourage our staff that actually they need to access support, and we need to be providing that support for them of what they're seeing and managing on a day-to-day basis, because the instances that we have managed have been quite traumatic, and it has had an impact on our staff's well-being and their ability to come to work and our retention. So we really wanted to make sure we were supporting our staff, giving them access to all the provisions available throughout the trust, and making sure they were accessing counselling as required. But our main big project has been the CYP mental health programme. So this has been a 5-day programme, which I'd like to show you all today, which ran its first cohort last week. So I was very excited last week, and I'm very excited to show you the feedback today. I'm going to talk you through it step by step, because it took a year to develop. So we'll show you each step. So next slide, please. So the aims of the programme was to develop a foundation education programme for all of the MDT in acute services looking after these children and young people. We can't make anybody an expert, but what we wanted to do is provide that foundational level of care that meant that we could give consistent care and ensure that our staff were educated to deliver what they needed to do on a day-to-day basis. We wanted staff to feel that they could assess and manage risk, especially within the acute setting, and understand legal frameworks, because that was a massive concern for a lot of our staff. And we wanted to empower our staff to feel confident and capable when caring for these young people in the same way they would feel confident and capable in looking at any other patient group. Next slide, please. So, as with any curriculum, this was influenced by many elements. Some of it comes from NHS England guidance, some of it has come from practice, incident reporting, literature reviews. Some of it has come from niche, which, as I say, will indicate to you that we've had some serious instances, and some of it came from the CQC. So it's really been influenced by lots of factors. It's very literature review based and based on the evidence. However, really importantly, it's based on what our staff are telling us that they need, and the training needs analysis that came from that. Next slide, please. A lot of what I've been hearing from the staff, this is actually from the staff questionnaire for the course, but actually I hear this on a day-to-day basis as a PDN, is that our staff really worry about failing these patients, and they really worry about making it worse. They really want to make sure they're providing the best care possible, but they feel it's a very unpredictable field, and they need to come together to provide this education. So next slide, please. So this is the curriculum that we kind of developed initially. It covered all elements from initial curriculum all the way through to legal frameworks, collaborative care, assessment, everything that we could cover. We wanted to build into this curriculum. However, we very quickly noticed that it would take quite a lot to deliver all this education. So next slide, please. So what we did is we took all this education, we broke it down into a 5-day course, and we delivered it as I wanted it delivered as a 5-day consecutive course, because we felt once you were in that mindset, you should stay there and continue to learn in this field. We also wanted to do that from a psychological safety point of view, because we wanted to make sure if we were talking about traumatic events or things that people might find triggering, that we were seeing them consistently over a week and making sure we were providing that consistency of care for our staff as well. So day 1 was very much about CAMS, day 2 legal and mental health acts, mental capacity acts and safeguarding. Day 3 was all about risk assessment, and supporting teams in practice. Day 4 was about autism and learning disabilities, and not to put those onto a mental health course, but to recognise that there is normally our young people coming in with mental health conditions will quite often have a learning disability or autism as well, and how do we best manage that in practice and make adjustments to look after those patients. And then day 5 is about eating disorders and meal support. Next slide, please. We're running this as a pilot. There's a 4-week programme across the year, and we're going to try and put 20 members of staff on each cohort. So that'll be 80 staff across the year. And the location is quite a special location. So next slide, please. We've been running this programme and we'll continue to run this for the rest of the year at Arundel Wildfowl and Wetlands. It's practical in as much as it's central for our trust geography. We have a very large geography for our trust going all the way from Chichester to Brighton. And it's practical. It's got a free car park, train station and good teaching equipment. However, the really important part is on the next slide. There's a huge amount of research about the influence of nature on stress response, reducing anxiety, but actually there's an awful lot of research out there about the influence of teaching in a natural environment and the effect it can have on well-being. And a large amount of that research is actually now coming into health professionals. So there's pastoral elements, giving people time to be in nature, the psychological support, the effect of a natural environment and reducing stress. But actually there's a huge amount of research showing increased creativity and ability to be able to focus on what they're learning, and as well as shared connections and not being a trigger in hospital environment. Next slide, please. These are all the literature which I say I'm really happy to share with everybody. But they very much support what we're saying about being a healing environment. Next slide, please. And I very cheekily, unpublished, put myself and my co-producer on there to talk about what our research showed, because I think it will be something that we look to publish. Okay, next slide, please. We'll talk you through that in a second. So measuring the impact. So we're using the Kirkpatrick model to look at our initial feedback, and say this course literally finished on Friday. So poor Kate received more slides this morning with the initial feedback. It was very much about how they could use this practically now, and their initial reaction that they'd learned an awful lot in relation to boundaries, consistency, escalation, how to challenge the stereotypes, how to work on supervision. But what I was really, really interested in is level 3 and level 4, looking at the effects of their behaviour and what the long-term results are. I've had multiple staff email me since Friday with things they want to change in practice to make better for our children and young people. So I'm excited to, when we get those kind of longer term results as well, to add those to the findings. Next page, please. Cohort 1 feedback has been exceptional. There are obviously things in there we need to change and develop, but it's been really positive. Staff have been saying how enlightened they've been feeling, and how cathartic it's been to share their experiences and learn about how to do things better for the future, and how much more hopeful they are feeling about going back to work. Next slide, please. The impact of the environment has been really, really important about being in nature to deliver this training. Obviously, the confidential parts were delivered in a classroom environment on site, but between those sessions, they were able to go for walks in nature. We even went and saw some diving ducks, and the pelicans were visible from our room the whole time. They found it a really reflective environment. There's lots of comments about how it just wouldn't have been the same course if they'd run it in the hospital. They were able to cope with difficult subjects more easily by being out in nature, and they just felt that it helped them not become overwhelmed. But it was really difficult subjects all week. The connection part, they were able to be far more interactive with each other. Regarding being in a brave space, I like the word brave space rather than safe space, because it really did take some bravery for them to talk about some of the things we were talking about and to be honest about how they were changing their preconceived ideas. And they felt that was made possible by being in a natural environment. And they found it really re-energizing to be in nature, and they found it calming. And I say one of the quotes was, "This course has been as cathartic as it has been educational." And I think that's partially due to the educational side, the supervision, and how we rolled that out and made sure everyone had that environment, and then the natural environment on top of that. Next slide, please. Kate asked me for 3 takeaway points, and that is on the next slide, but I actually, on reading the feedback, would actually like to give my takeaway comments to my teams who attended, and this is their comments that I picked out. I mean, I could have literally written you 30 of these, but this should be part of everyone's training. The team really did feel it was consistency, which is going to make a difference for these children and young people and for the teams. The program made me feel like I was valued and invested in, and so helpful, so empowering, and so needed. Next slide, please, Kate. So my 3 technical take-home messages are that we need to value mental health equally with physical health, and that CYP mental health education is needed for all our teams in a systematic, consistent way to improve the care we can deliver in the acute settings. An alternative environment can really promote well-being, creativity, and improve the learning and engagement. It was really, really interesting to see. As a PDN, I've taught in many magnolia painted rooms, and actually it was really interesting to see the change and the dynamic of the staff by being in a completely different environment and what that did for them. And that the approach to this kind of education needs to be educational, but also we need to be pastoral in how we look after our staff and how we build supervision and debriefing into our education programs, and really use the best of that protected time. I'm very conscious of time, so I'm going to wrap up there, but thank you all so much for listening, and I really appreciate any comments you have later. Thank you.
Oh, wow, thanks, Sadie. That was a brilliant presentation, and again, really informative. Lots of claps and hearts going up. Really informative. Got a lot of love in this room. I have to say, it's I've done some sessions out in sort of in nature, but only sort of, I suppose, latterly. And also the last place I worked, interesting enough, the hospital I was at had a park close by to it, and I actually did my appraisal out in the park area. Do you know, it's a completely different, it's a leveler, isn't it? It de-stresses the whole situation. I think people coming together, and obviously in this situation, you know, having to really talk about some really key things, and probably some quite challenging things that people and experiences people have been in. But actually being in that environment, it breaks down those boundaries. It is calming, you're right, and reinvigorating. So there's a bit here, you've got 2 bits to it, really. It's about connecting with nature, isn't it, and all the value that has, but also by doing the education program in such a way, you are reducing your green footprint by doing that, aren't you, rather than being in a, as you said, a magnolia classroom with the heating at full pelt and you know, etc., and we're in electricity. So there's a lot of takeaways from this, actually. Well, I can only wish you, it can only go from strength to strength. I think you've obviously had some great feedback already, which is amazing. I'm sure you'll get lots of questions on this later, but we'll hold it there for now because we have 2 more speakers. So thank you so much. So Lou, we've got Lou up next, new bachelor. Lou, are you there?
I am.
Brilliant. And you've got your presentation. Fantastic. Just do introduce yourself, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I won't need the presentation for a little while yet, but that will be the second half. So, am I right in thinking that many of you might be feeling, oh, okay, when it comes to sustainability, going green, what can I do? I'm not an expert, right? How do we? It's tricky to talk about something when you're not an expert, right? And I think this can limit us from having those conversations, feeling unqualified, fears about greenwashing, and also an anxiety of both the situation, and kind of climate anxiety can be an issue for some people, but also to be able to have these conversations. Well, I want to talk to you about how you don't have to be a sustainability expert to have a conversation on climate, and also to share some examples of integrating green values from people who are also not sustainability experts as part of community, educational, and mental health projects for young people and vulnerable adults. So, I guess I want to start by saying, so my name's Liu Bachelor, and I am not a sustainability expert, right? Um, I now work in sustainability, but for a long time, I struggled with, yeah, not being an expert, but feeling the anxiety and the worry of, I want to do something and I want to play my part, but I don't know how to. I don't know what I can do because I had imposter syndrome of even being able to talk about it, right? And so, and from a lot of conversations, I know that this is a concern for a number of people, and a number of the people I'm going to share some example projects with you later on have had this same concern. And I think it really, the challenge with this is it really limits us from being able to have conversations with our peers, with friends and family, and particularly with young people who I think increasingly are struggling with climate anxiety, the concerns, and also the very large uncertainty that comes with a lot of these questions of their future, but also all the dynamics of how it interplays with a lot of stuff in society. But I'll tell you what the breakthrough was for me, and in terms of being able to have these conversations at whatever level, was when I realized, and suddenly a light bulb, something clicked, and the obstacle, the concern, the thing that was stopping me became the opportunity. And that was, I'm not an expert. Brilliant. Because that means I'm not speaking or trying to speak like a scientist, which for a lot of people is confusing and overwhelming and just goes completely over their head. And it doesn't relate to our everyday situations for a lot of people. And so realizing that me not being an expert was actually what gave me the opportunity to connect with people, um, was the thing that made that difference for me. And I personally work in communications. So my background is I have run TEDx events. I work a lot with individuals who have great knowledge, who have great ideas, are doing great projects, and they want to engage other people. A lot of community projects. And a lot of the community groups I've been working with have that same concern. I'm not an expert, and therefore they don't put their projects out there in the world, and therefore people don't benefit, because if you don't know about it, you can't benefit from it. So that was really the shift in realizing not knowing was what enabled me to have everyday conversations with other people who also felt like they weren't able to have these conversations, um, and bringing that into my work. So as I said, I do a lot of work with community projects, helping them to be able to express the great work they're doing, and particularly in terms of environmental projects, or sometimes it's community projects with an environmental twist. So as well as, hopefully that message of you don't have to be an expert to have conversations, I want to share some examples now of different projects who have equally not been experts, and they will quite actively say, I am not a sustainability expert, but are doing great things that hopefully can help. A lot of them are helping young people, and it may be things that, examples of the sort of things you can be referring to, social prescribing, things like that, but also potentially give you ideas about different ways of looking at how in areas of your work, or, within the NHS, it's looking at how people and planet can come together, and it's not an either or, that actually they can really benefit, and they're better when we look at both together. So we'll go on for first slide, please, or next slide, I should say. Here we go. Examples of work within youth work. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of different kind of settings. So next slide, please. There we go. Okay, so this project was with East Kent College in Broadstairs, and it was the Nurture Forest School, and this was amazing. This was East Kent College were basically, this was a program set out for students who had otherwise been kicked out of school, not otherwise in education, employment, or training. So they were the kind of at-risk students that were going to be kind of lost otherwise. And they've set up this forest school as an alternative way of engaging people in education and giving them that safe space, those students that don't work well in a classroom. And by creating that outdoor space, it gave them that opportunity to express those kind of ideas and in a different setting. And for them, it was more about the young people and being able to offer them the training and the mental health support, but doing it in this environment absolutely complemented the approach and the alternative setting that these particular students needed. So next slide, there are some more pictures. Oh, there we go. There we go. So some more examples. This was on, they were lucky enough to do it all on campus as part of their main Broadstairs College, but they designated this little area. And they were also teaching the students additional skills that, you know, like woodworking and kind of things like that, that they wouldn't otherwise necessarily have been doing, and they had ownership of this space to develop it, but also the opportunities to work in that different environment that gave them that little bit more freedom when they needed it. Next slide, please. So this is the Shed, which is a youth centre in Folkestone. This is another example of using sustainability within a youth work setting. So the lady who runs this, Ruth, said consistently, I'm not a sustainability expert, and that's what made her good at the work she did. She was a youth worker first and foremost, but what she was really passionate about was bringing in small things like having mini gardening projects or setting up ways they could use different materials and repurpose them and turn them into things. And so it was a really, I guess it was thinking outside the box in terms of doing things creatively, but not just creatively in terms of arts and crafts, but thinking differently. How can we protect the environment, and working with the young people that she worked with to be able to come up with ideas for the things that they could do within this alternative setting. And again, it was using the environmental questions, consciousness, projects that they were doing as a teaching tool for the young people, as opposed to it, okay, we have to be sustainability experts. It was just doing tiny little things to start them being able to have conversations, which they then took back to their parents, to their colleagues. And her big thing was all around making sustainability more inclusive and more accessible. We can go to the next slide. I'm not going to play this video, but it's there for you if you want to watch it back at a later date. I'm happy for the slides to be shared. She really talked about how sustainability and kind of green issues, you know, a lot of products, yeah, they might cost more, so they're not as accessible to people maybe on low incomes. And you know, if you've got to bring all your bags of recycling down from, you know, you're a single mum, that can be challenging, right? So how can we make sustainability more accessible, and that it doesn't have to be an expensive thing of just buying a higher priced product? It can be looking at upcycling, how you can be mending things to so that we're looking at the cost of living benefits as well as the sustainability benefits. So this is her talk about making sustainability more inclusive, particularly for kind of those kind of audiences that might not normally think that it's something that can apply to them. I won't play this now, but it's available if you want to watch it at a later date. Very inspiring, and really some great examples of what you can do within a youth work setting. We'll go on to next slide, please. Oh, is it right? There we go. The next examples, two examples I want to share is around using sustainability from a social prescribing perspective, working with both people with mental health conditions, also young people as well. I will play a little bit of this video. I won't play it all because I'm conscious of time, but Touch Base Care are a a centre that work with adults with learning, with a whole range of different learning disabilities, and they set up a forest school, but also a farm space, and they were both using it as an opportunity for the people they work with to get out in nature. But one of my favourite things is how they used it to give them projects to be learning skills of, you know, how to make things, how to build things, how to get their hands dirty, as opposed to the typical kind of arts and crafts stuff that they were doing previously. So hopefully we can play the video. We'll find out, and I'll just play a 2 minutes or so. Okay. I don't know whether the internet's keeping up with this.
We can say
It might not work, Lou, because
Yeah.
of the just thinking of the bandwidth. But could we put the
Buffering,
link in? I mean, people will get the
Yes.
slides. We will circulate, but
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Videos,
Yeah, brilliant.
you can come back, watch that in your own time. But yeah, a really lovely project that I definitely recommend watching. Really heartwarming, and some great ideas, innovative stuff they're doing. Blackthorn Trust, another similar organisation who do a lot of work on social prescribing around mental health, and again, they're another example of starting to use nature as a way of delivering their services, both taking some of their services out into nature, but also, you know, gardening, like the number of benefits of that in terms of reconnecting with nature. And I've heard a talk from a lady, worked with a lady who does a lot of stuff around composting and soil, and it doesn't sound very exciting, but there's lots of science in, you know, putting your hands in the dirt and being able to be, you know, like when we were kids and we play in the dirt and we don't have a care in the world, and it's that reconnection with nature that I think goes beyond, it's on a human level, like beyond the the mental health and the safe space side. It adds another level, and so Blackthorn Trust are an example of people using nature, gardening, things like that, as an element of social prescribing to support with mental health. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so next, creating opportunities for young people. So next slide, please. So this is the Kent Gleaning Project, and this was set up in collaboration with Producing Kent, who are an organisation that support agricultural producers, food and drink producers, with the University of Kent. And food waste, and their real aim was to combat food waste. And we often think about food waste in terms of the banana skin that we throw out and the eggshells and things like that. But it's shocking to learn the amount of food that gets wasted on the farm, purely because the farmer doesn't have it costs too much to pick all of this waste food, that it's not worth coming out, or they have a bumper crop that the supermarkets are not buying all of it because they've got so much of it, so the prices go down, and therefore it's not economically viable for them to collect this food. But we have a huge level of food waste as a result, because it's just sitting rotting in the fields. And so what this project was about was working with the University of Kent and the local community to invite volunteers to come and do gleaning. So basically coming and picking the food that would otherwise not be used and redistributing it out into the community. But in the process of doing that, giving the students, the university students, that opportunity to both combat climate anxiety, because they feel like they're actively doing something, they're participating in a solution, but also to learn about it, to learn about the wider food process, because a lot of what they were doing was with collecting a lot of this food, getting data on how much food is wasted that could then be sent to as part of lobbying the government and organizations to address some of these issues. So it gave great work experience opportunities, and also to be a part of the community for young people, for volunteers, to feel like they're actively playing a part. And I think that's a key part of addressing some of the climate anxiety that a lot of young people particularly, will be struggling with. Next slide, please. So next, I just want to show you two quick examples of, I guess, from a slightly wider organisational point of view, sustainability within community engagement and also fundraising of voluntary and community organisations. So next slide, please. So this was a project called the Sustainable Futures Forum that was hosted by Folkestone and Hythe District Council. And a big part of what they wanted to do is they understood that their role as a local authority, they couldn't be directly doing all the projects and the initiatives that they needed to, but their role was to take a leadership role in empowering local people, local community groups, individuals, organisations, businesses to be playing the roles that they could. Because they, from looking at the local authority, Folkestone and Hythe District Council, their initial thing was to look at their own impact, and they discovered that their direct impact, or the areas of carbon emissions that they had direct control about, was less than 0.5%, which I find is shocking. But you also go, yeah, okay, sometimes we look to the organisations to take that role, but actually it can be hard to have that direct control. So this was where they went, right, how can we take a leadership role in empowering the local community to play their part? So the Sustainable Futures Forum was about a programme providing support for people with green eco projects and community projects to be able to really promote and shout about the great work that they're doing, and coming together to be able to share best practice, to share inspiration and inspire other people and other community groups, other businesses in the steps that they could be taking. Because there are lots of people out there doing amazing things. We just don't always see and hear about them. So this was about showcasing the local grassroots eco champions and connecting them with others who would be wanting to take their first steps as well. And then next slide, please.
Lou, I'm just a bit conscious of time, actually, because we've got another presentation. Okay. So is it all right to just quickly wrap up? Brilliant, thank you.
Very similar. So I guess my takeaway really is two elements. One is kind of on a personal level, being conscious of being open with climate, with your fears and concerns and the obstacles about having conversations around climate, and to go, the fact that you're not an expert means that you can have accessible conversations and ask people what their concerns are, and equally what your concerns, based on what your concerns are, and sharing those conversations. And the second piece is, as hopefully my examples have shown, is that it doesn't have to be either people or planet, it can be both, and bringing those two together can have a huge impact, and supporting those organizations and referring basically to them, because they're doing some great work out there. So thank you very much.
Brilliant, Lou. Thank you so much. Another really fabulous presentation, really inspiring. Lou, when we're on the next presentation, you need to have a look at the comments. Actually, there's some fab comments in there. I mean, loads to take from your presentation as well. I have to say, the big thing is, hospital sites, we could utilise them so much better within our, our green environments. And there's a lot that we could do around the estate strategy on this as well. But anyway, I'll hold that in case we've got any questions later further on. But thank you, huge thanks again. So now on to our next presenter, which is Lucy. Lucy, are you there? Ooh. Excellent, right, Lucy, floor is yours. We can't hear you actually for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah, I still can't hear you. Oh, speak now.
Anything now?
Yes.
Anything now?
Yes.
Yes. Oh,
yes.
Oh my gosh, the panic. Right.
Over to you.
Right.
Don't panic. You're all right.
Thank you. So I'm Lucy. I'm a youth voice consultant. I started my journey as a young person getting involved in the NHS, and that was like too long ago, maybe 15 years ago. Trained as a youth worker and now kind of specialise in youth voice in kind of healthcare. So I'm currently working with Barnardo's. Actually, I'll show you on the next slide if that's all right. So I'm currently working in the Barnardo's Voice and Influence team, and our team has expanded massively, but we are working in partnership with NHS England to do lots around youth voice in the NHS. So we are currently working on the NHS Youth Forum, the Youth Advisory Network, and the Young People's Health Challenge, which is the project that I'm leaning on. So lots in this space. Next slide, please, Kate. That'd be great. Feel very Chris Whitty. So dress for the challenge that you want in life. I had this jumper and thought it was appropriate. So the Young Person's Health Challenge is a partnership project between Barnardo's, RCPCH and NHS England. It's been co-produced with young people. It's aimed at kind of age group or learning age of 7 to 14, and its basis is for young people to learn about the NHS, their own health, and future opportunities for them to get involved in the NHS. So there are 3 toolkits sort of based around like different age brackets. There's a rainbow-based theme, so 7 themes, and 63 challenges, all of which can be adapted in partnership with young people. It's all kind of like very engaging and youth-led. Oh, I was just about to do my slide, but Kate's in charge. Thanks, Kate. Next one, please. I just wanted to share with you kind of like the background and aims for this project. So we saw a gap in the market really for how we engage with young people, but also if we think of youth voice as a garden, where are the seeds and the grassroots things that are happening? We often hear, how do I engage with young people? How can I like do those first steps? NHS in like it really impacts all of us. We all use the NHS, but often children and young people are left out of that conversation or are not engaged in conversations about healthcare. So you can see that we've got kind of a variety of aims for this, but with its purpose being to help reduce health inequalities, transition into like other opportunities for young people to get involved. So NHS cadets, volunteering opportunities, careers in the NHS, etc., etc. Like youth forums, voice opportunities, projects, increasing their health and well-being, and increasing their connection to the NHS, and obviously an impact on that is a impact on their health for the rest of their lives, really. Next slide for me, Kate. So we piloted, the toolkit has been piloted last year. We worked with over 350 young people to create the toolkit, and it was really successful. And I can't take any credit for that because I wasn't involved, but I wish I was. And so we're really positive that this has been underpinned by what is it that young people want, what is it that we need to deliver, what is fun and engaging and is going to work. So I will also say at this point, so we are currently in a second phase rollout, which is the program that I'm running for the between now and the end of the year, which is looking at how can we deliver this, how can it be best delivered in local areas rather than us just kind of put it out there and hope for the best. So we are inviting organisations, voluntary sector, local authority, ICBs, health providers to just kind of show interest and maybe like come together to help deliver the project, and get young people engaged and also kind of capture some of that learning so we can understand how it can have a sustainable future. Next slide for me, please, Kate. So yeah, what do young people get out of it? So these are some of the key things that came out of the pilot, but also thinking about like what they wanted to get out of it. So I won't go through all of them, but in general, what they're learning about like their own health, how to support the NHS, practical activities and tools, things like jobs, etc. Next slide, please, Kate. And generally, like, creating positive outcomes for children and young people, so they're getting increased understanding and confidence in knowing how to look after their personal, mental and physical health. They're aware of the actions they can take to support the NHS. We've seen a renewed interest in that support in the NHS after COVID. Things about NHS careers, and increased focus and desire to look after their own health and well-being, which is really great. So, and obviously our learnings, our insight kind of included young people were more inclined to support the NHS through different activities. I guess, like, linking into what some of the other speakers have said, and I will mention this later, I think, like, this like culture of it being together, making changes together. And Munya mentioned in the chat as well, actually, we can't really provide stuff for young people without really talking to them first. So obviously I'm a great believer in that. This is a tool that could be used to help start those conversations, but actually I think that culture of we are together in this is very, like, sustainability is very much on the young person's agenda, but also, like, young people want to be able to look after their own health and well-being. They have they don't necessarily have the knowledge and skills to be able to do it, but they certainly could have. Next slide, please, Kate. Forgotten where I'm at now. So what do we gain, basically? So what we want to reiterate is that young people are the leaders of today, not just tomorrow. So they are actually at the forefront of lots of sustainability projects, initiatives, all the stuff that Lou was talking about. There are future workforce, future patients, carers, supporters, service shapers, champions, and much more. So really thinking about, like, how we invest in that prevention side of things. So how can we support the prevention and healthy lives? We're really, like, we hope through the health challenge and through other initiatives that we're creating positive relationships with the NHS early on. We're empowering young people to take ownership over their own health and become advocates for change. And that's a lot of what we do around, like, youth social action. It's about change, that voice that we want to see change happening, and young people can really be your partners in helping that happen. Young people also bring really fresh and innovative ideas to the challenges that we face. They don't have that necessarily the same look on barriers. So actually getting them involved is really useful. Great. And then I guess, yeah, the sort of take home for the last slide, Kate. Yeah, just the importance of getting young people involved. There are so many ways that we can listen and engage and empower young people to create better outcomes for everybody, and engage meaningfully. So build positive foundations for a healthy life. And of course, like, if you would like to, like, know more about the health challenge or the work that we're doing with Bernardo's, please do get in touch with us, or, like, you can have a look at our website for the health challenge. And I hope that I didn't go over too much time. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, brilliant, Lucy. No, pleasure's ours. Thank you so much again. Another fantastic, thought-provoking, really rich presentation, and very inspiring as well. I think we've been very blessed today, I have to say, with our presentations. What a wonderful set of, really engaging the children and young people agenda, whether that's, how we can have an impact on children and young people, but also how we can make things better for them around all of this agenda, but also the staff that work with them as well, isn't it? And actually, as an NHS, what can we really do and think outside the box to improve things? So brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody, for your presentations, and for those that have put comments in the chat box. Again, huge thanks. And there's lots of positivity here and lots of good ideas and thoughts that people have taken on board here, and we've got some sort of key take home messages that are just on the screen. Happy to take any. If anybody's got any questions, well, we've got a couple of minutes actually. We could take any questions, any thoughts, any reflections at all. Anybody has on the talks that we've had. We have recorded all of them, which is wonderful. No, I don't think. But there's lots of comments that Lucy, did you want to come in? Thank you.
Yeah, just to say thanks again to everybody, and it's we've crammed so much in, haven't we? It's so hard to only have 5 minutes at the end, because I imagine there's so many questions in people's heads, but we have got we're going to be sharing all of this about Simply Inspired, and really think we need to make sure we're sharing all of our recordings with our education team to empower all our staff that haven't been able to come to see all of this, because there really is opportunity, and engaging in the young people is that key take home message. Mary.
Oh, thank you. What an incredible session and amazing presentations. I'm absolutely in awe. For me as a repair fellow looking at recruitment and retention, what's really struck me about what's been so successful within these projects has been the engagement of young people, engagement of our staff, and engagement of those that are working within our services, and that has really struck me as why they've been so successful, and why sort of the engagement in the room is just so positive. So congratulations and thank you so much.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd echo that, Mary. Thank you. Really great. I think there's a bit, well, get your hands dirty, Lou. That's definitely one we need to. I remember that when I was younger, honestly, and also being younger, just being out a lot more as well, isn't it? I know we're in a bit of a different age now, aren't we? But there's a lot to be said about being in the environment that we have, and we're blessed with a very lovely environment. But we also are blessed with lovely environments within our estates, within NHS estates, actually, and it really is capitalised. That's what I've taken away from this, is what we can do to really align with the NHS strategy around all of this, and make our, the places where people work and where our patients go, where people get cared for. It's not just inside the walls of those areas, it's outside the walls as well, isn't it? And really paying particular attention to that is really important, and what we do within those areas as well. So wow, huge thanks. Fabulous presentations and lineup again. And thank you again to our speakers for coming today. You will have access to all of the recordings, as we said. Really hope that people have taken, well, I know people have taken a lot from today, and where you can make an impact, and those little golden nuggets that you can take away into your own areas of work, and also for us at NHS England, where we can again influence around all of this with our systems, and those systems that have been on and providers. Great coverage from across the southeast today. So on those that are attending, so huge thanks as well. Right, well, I'll look forward then, guys, is for tomorrow, is same time, same place, but we're going to be looking at innovation in healthcare. So and my regional chief midwife Kay is going to be chairing that session tomorrow, and as I said, I'll be chairing on Friday, looking at clinical leadership and doing the awards. So huge thanks again to everybody who's presented, also for those who have attended on the session today. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you over the next couple of days as well. Thanks a lot, everyone. Take care. Thank you.